I mean, it's sort of transcendence, I think, is something that we all are often always looking for. Whether we're finding it in love or in some sort of spiritual search. I happen to look for it in art. I was living in New York and there was a big Monet retrospective, and I was looking at the Cathedral of Chartres series, and they fascinated me because when you were up close, they were one thing, and when you got back, they were something else altogether different. For me, the attempt to reconcile those two realities just catapulted me into this other reality, and I wanted something like that in my work. So op art, or also known as optical art, is a movement that started in the 60s with early people like Bridget Riley and Victor Vasarely, Richard Anaskevich. It's about the phenomena, the nature of perception, and about how the eye can be fooled. On this one, you can see that the edge seems to push in and out against here, and it also seems to warp out, warp and weave this way, coming towards you. You know, I didn't set out to make op art. It just, my work just happened to be heading in that direction at a time when that became an interest, you know, of a lot of other artists as well. Okay, so now I'm going to do 2632. So that starts here. 1990, 1991, I'd been working with this number system for a long time. It's just a very simple number game with just numbers 1 through 9. And laid out in a 3x3 matrix, like on a telephone or an adding machine. And I discovered that if you did these little diagrams and then rotated the little drawing, rotated that little sketch 4 times around that 3x3 matrix, you'd get this consistent sum, like 22,220, every single time. And that just fascinated me. And so I tried every possible permutation of that. I mean, I'd started when I was 13, and by then I was like 40, and I've been doing them as paintings. It took me a long time to figure out how to get them on canvas. One morning in 1990, I just woke up with the solution. And the solution was to do a full-scale drawing on a piece of mylar, and then glue it to the back of a canvas, shine a light through it, and that way I could see where the lines were on the drawing, and I could tape over that so that I could reproduce the drawing absolutely. That's how they got onto canvas. Taping itself is actually a very meditative process. And I know people look at my work, the finished product, especially the ones that are optically so active. They'll ask me, like, how do you do that? Because it makes your eyes so crazy. And it's like, no, when I'm working, there's really only one color at a time on the surface. And it's actually very meditative. It's a very relaxing process. Most painters, when they're painting, they're constantly building a new surface, creating their new surface as they work. For someone like me, I'm constantly covering up my surface because you lay down a layer of paint, then you tape where you want to preserve that color before you put the next layer of paint down. So for tapers, you're constantly covering up your surface and you don't know what you've got until you actually pull off that last bit of tape. So it's always a little bit of a surprise. So in this painting in particular, this is about as minimal as an op art painting can get because it's a pale gray and white. It's just very simple progression of shapes. What it's about for me is something that's here and gone and yet forever here. It's sort of like the breath, breathing in and out. I think that's the whole point. Whatever it is that makes your brain tingle and your heart set, everything, just everything, your visceral response, your intellectual response, the reason to make art. That and sex. It is about that transcendent, that epiphany, that sort of experience. I mean, that's why we do what we do, right?